Welcome to the Connors Corner segment of Ask the Lawyer. Right now with me is a former Major League Baseball player. He was, in many World Series games. He was a Gold Glove winner 3 times, an All-Star second baseman 4 times. In 1973, he was one of 3 players on the same team who hit more than 40 home runs, which included Hank Aaron and Darrell Evans. But he's more remembered for his accomplishments as a manager than a player. And you may say, hey, how could that be? But that's our next guest, Davey Johnson. How you doing today, sir?
Hey, Mike, I'm doing great. I'm here at home with my 2 dogs, and we're having fun.
Okay, what kind of dogs do you have?
I got a Burmese Doodle, which is a Burmese Mountain Dog and Poodle mix, and all he wants to do is be petted. And German Short-Hair Pointer, that all she wants to do is run. But you hear my Burmese Doodle.
Yeah,
working.
okay. Maybe we'll have our dog bark back or whatever, but he's not in the studio today. All right, you had a great playing career, but even a greater career as a manager. Now, how did that start? How did you get involved in managing?
Well, actually, when I was kind of beat up at the end of my career, I got an offer to manage the Miami Amigos and be a player manager. And I thought it was a great opportunity. And I got to pick the team. I had a couple of tryout camps, one in Miami and one up in Sanford. And I had a great time. We were so good, the team I picked, that we were about 15 games up, and the league folded after 80 games. So it was fun. Okay,
now eventually you got hooked up with the Met organization. How'd that happen?
Well, actually, it was funny. McIlvaine called me. He was the director of scouting for the Mets, and he said, how would you like to manage in the Texas League? I said, well, man, that's great. My mother's from San Antonio, and all my relatives are there. It'd be great. And then I found out it was Jackson, Mississippi, which is a 13-hour bus ride from San Antonio. But I really enjoyed it. We didn't have a whole lot of prospects, but we won the Texas League championships. And they wanted me to go back there, and then I said no. I was too much on the bus rides, and so I rode for 1 year, and then I managed the team in Tidewater, and then they gave me the job in New York, 84.
1984. Now the Mets were not in good shape in 1983.
No, I mean I really liked the talent that when you manage 2 years in the minor leagues, you get to know all the talent, and I always thought that was a priority for being a big league manager. Manager in the minor leagues, you know the talent, and then it's easy to get the best team on the field. In fact, because I got in a whole lot of trouble with Dusty Baker and Don Baylor because I said that was a prerequisite for me to manage in the minor leagues, and they all got on me and said, "You're making everybody prejudiced." They just went from coaching into the big leagues, so it's funny.
So 1984, the Mets come into a resurgence. Things get exciting then at Shea Stadium. How did it feel for you to be, managing the major leagues and your first year out, you got a winning record?
Well, a funny thing, Mike, the first year we were outscored by 18 runs. Now think about that. And we were 18 games over 500. I knew I had some deficiencies in the bullpen on one side because I like to divide the bullpen between A and B. And if we were ahead, I'd use my A side. If we were behind, I'd use my B side. And when we got better as it went along, we went from 90 games to 98 games to 108 games when we resolved all the deficiencies in the ball club.
Now, one of the things I admired you as a manager, you weren't stuck with the book, especially when it didn't make any sense.
Well, one thing about, when you manage 25 guys, the biggest thing for chemistry is when every one of those 25 guys knows their role. And if you're a bench guy or a bullpen guy, and if you do really well, I'll expand the role. And that creates great chemistry. And when you have great chemistry on a ball club, you win. And it's all about everybody knowing their role. That's the main topic I wanted to get across.
Well, I guess we'll skip forward to 86. One of the greatest teams ever put together. You won 108 games, a couple of heartaches in between, but you did get to win the World Series.
Yeah, and that was so much fun because for me, the manager of the Boston club was the catcher when I was in Double-A, and Earl Weaver was my manager. And he called for a pitch that hit me in the nose. And so for me to come back and beat him when we were 2 outs, 2 strikes, and 2 runs down, come back and beat him, that was the greatest thrill of my life.
At that point, did you have any confidence or any hope that you were going to win that game?
we never lost confidence. It was a great ball club. I mean, we had a lot of characters on that ball club, as you know, but we never lost confidence. I mean, you don't win 108 games and not have confidence you can come back and win any game.
87, a little bit of a disappointment. 88, tough loss to the Dodgers in the playoffs.
No question about it. You know, the thing that I remember most is that the switch hitter was up before, and he actually struck out. The umpire didn't call a swing on a strike. And then I could have gone to Randy Myers in the bullpen. I thought things were going good. And then when Sochi hit the home run, that was a shock to everybody. Momentum, just changed. It was an unbelievable time. One of the most uncomfortable times of my life.
Did you ever think after the 86 World Series that you wouldn't be there again with the Mets?
I thought I was going to be there for a lifetime, to be honest with you. And because, I tried to block some trades, and, I was an Army brat, and I just believed that my general manager was my boss, and whatever he wanted to do, I would try to support it. I did disagree on the Mitchell trade, and I disagreed on the Dykstra and McDowell trade. But as it came out, they all blamed it on me, but I would never have traded those guys. I love that team, and I thought I was going to be there a long time. I guess it was because I was a little obstinate, and I was very opinionated. I guess that's one of my faults.
Is that the reason you were let go by the Mets?
I guess. I never smoothed the owner. I know a lot of baseball men have a good relationship with ownership when they take the job. But I always, like I say, Army brat, I just believe in the general manager as my boss, and I just do whatever he want to do and try to support it.
So where'd you go from there?
Oh, man, where did I go from there? I guess I went to Cincinnati. And
yeah.
March shot, and they fired me there, and then went to Angelos, and then I went to L.A., and
yeah, but you had success with Cincinnati.
Yeah, and I thought I'd be going to be there for a while, but Marge shot. She also demanded that I get married to my wife, which she was traveling with me because I wanted her to see if she liked the game of baseball and could handle that, because we had 3 kids. She had 3 kids. And I was going to marry her, but Marge shot said, if you don't come marry her, you're not coming back. So I married her. And then she fired me anyway, so what the heck, didn't matter.
Well, she was a little bit of a character too, but okay, so that's the reason.
Don't even get me started. Don't even get me
Why
started.
Why
not? Well, that's a whole other story. I mean, I got messages during the game that if we didn't pull this game out, my wife wouldn't go home with me, and it was always from Shotzi, lips and licks from Shotzi.
Washington Nationals.
Yes.
What age are you when you're managing the Washington Nationals?
I think about 69, and I didn't expect to go manage them. They called me up, and I was getting ready to go to a golf tournament out in Tahoe, and wanted me to come up. And so I came up and tried to straighten things out up there, and I think we did a pretty good job. Next year we won 98 games, and then I had one more year there, 2013, and I remember going to Africa to taking my wife on an Africa trip, and I came back and they signed Soriano instead of some left-hand relievers. That upset me, but and we only won 86 games. So, but I knew I was going after that year. I filled the role that I was needed to fill up in Washington.
Now, when you start looking at the stats and you're looking at managers and their winning percentages, outside of Earl Weaver, I don't know anybody who had a higher winning percentage than you did in the later part of the 20th century going into the 21st century.
Well, I don't care much about it. I don't care much about personal goals. I feel very fortunate. I got elected to the Hall of Fame in Florida and Texas, also in Baltimore and New York. But it was all about the players that I had and the job they did, so it doesn't bother me. I'm not going anywhere further.
Okay, well, let me ask you this. What was your biggest thrill as a baseball player?
As a player, maybe getting the last hit off Sandy Koufax, and it was funny because in 1966, they were going to the ballpark, and it said, would you believe the Dodgers in 4 straight will beat Drysdale? And the next day, Koufax was pitching, And he never did pitch against the American League clubs because he didn't want to in spring training. And he would pitch me tough the first 2 times up, and then I got a base hit in the 7th inning, and they took him out. And I'll never forget it. I went up to him next year in spring training in Vero Beach. I said, Sandy, hey, man, how you doing? Great to see you. I'm sorry you're retired. Guess who got the last hit off you? And he said, when that happened, I knew I was washed up. So that was one of my big moments that kind of got shattered.
Yeah, but how many games did he win that year? 26?
Yeah, he was unbelievable. He was, he wasn't that big. He was like maybe 5'10" or something. Came right over the top, but he had a great riding fastball and a great curveball. He was outstanding.
Now, as a manager, I guess your biggest thrill had to be that first World Series championship.
Yeah, I mean, I had a great ball club, and I told them in the spring we're going to not only win, we're going to dominate, and we did. But I had learned a lot from Earnshaw Cook in his book Percentage Baseball in Baltimore, and putting guys on base in front of your productive hitters, and that's where I set my lineup with Dykstra and Bachman in front of Hernandez, Carter, and Strawberry, and we did dominate, and it was fun. And that's always going to be my favorite team. And a lot of those guys have come on hard times. Some of them are doing better now, and I'm happy about that.
You mentioned a book that I haven't heard about for years, Earnshaw Cook, Percentage Baseball. I mean, he had certain things that back then were revolutionary, like don't bunt as much as you should. And I also thought he talked about moving pitchers a little bit more often, taking them out sooner, didn't he?
Yeah, the main thing I didn't agree with him, he said, if you have a 250 hitter in the lineup, and I'm having lunch with him, don't ever let him swing 2-0. I said, Earnshaw, these guys are human beings. That's the best pitch they might get. But he did come up with the on-base percentage before Elias or anybody. And I really used that, and I thought it was probably the best thing he ever did.
That's true, because, I mean, going back as a kid, I remember, what was your batting average? Your on-base percentage was a statistic that really almost nobody took notice of.
No, nobody did till Earnshaw Cook, and then I started using it, and I said, man, give me on-base percentage because I know who to hit 1 and 2 in front of my run producers, and I used that my whole career. I even tried to do a program for Weaver, but he threw it in the garbage can, so what the hell, that didn't work out. He used 5 at-bats for a hitter, and I said, Earl, it's unfavorable chance deviation. You need 500 chances to predict plus or minus 5%, but he didn't buy that.
Well, I guess he had his own success, though. You can't argue too much.
He was the greatest. I mean, Earl Weaver would hide in the runway and smoke a cigarette and say, I can't look. Tell me what happens. Did he walk or did he get a hit? He was the best. He was a tremendous competitor. But biggest influence I got from Earl because he handled a pitcher's staff better than anybody I've ever seen.
Why did you write your book? What's the point behind your book?
Well, my wife wanted the money for her charity, SOS, which is Scholarship for Scholars. And it's all underprivileged young girls that get a scholarship in college. And we give them mentors and a lot of money extra to make sure that they're successful and don't have to work too hard to get through college. And she's had nothing but success, and it's a great charity. So I'm happy, and I hope the book sells so that she can make more money.
Okay, well, very good. That's, a good cause. Now, what do you want the reader to get out of the book?
Well, I hope some young players will understand, the things I went through, and I hope some young managers will understand that it's not always roses and pictures whenever you go to work in the big leagues, and you have to deal with it. And I hope they get something out of it in positive. I always like to deal in positives. Okay,
so what's the name of the book?
Davey Johnson's My Life in Baseball and Beyond. It's hard to go back and relive some things because there's not all good times. You know what I mean? Yeah, well, every baseball player, every manager gets fired for the most part. A couple of exceptions here and there. Yeah, you're right. Everybody gets released except for, some of the superstars and guys who get lucky. I've been released and I've been sold to Japan, and I've been traded. Everybody's done everything with me. You brought something up. What was it like to play in Japan? It was great. I was fortunate. I got to play for with a team with Saharo, who was like Babe Ruth over there. Yeah, and that's a trivia question. Who hit behind the 2 greatest home run hitters of all time when they broke Babe Ruth's record? And it was me. hitting behind Henry Aaron and Saha. And my manager was a guy named Nagashima, who was all-world third baseman over there, and he was something else too.
What was the difference between Japanese baseball and Major League Baseball at that time?
Well, I always thought that there was going to be a lot of players over there that could play in the big leagues, but I was over there in a wave of only Americans came over to Japan, and I played for the team that was like the Yankees and the Brooklyn Dodgers rolled into one. The only team that was on TV, Tokyo Giants, and they were the greatest, and I really enjoyed it. But you know what? They believe in the shuto over there. Now, shuto is a fastball in on your hands, and they always pride themselves on the shuto. And so you have to learn how to take that pitch and also hit the inside fastball, which I thought was good.
And you came back to play in the major leagues for a little while after that.
Yeah, I came back, and actually, it was a funny story. I came back, and I wanted to play for the Philadelphia Phillies because I thought they had the best chance of winning. And I called up Paul Owens, and I said, Paul, I'm ready to come back and play for you. I think I need to make about $100,000. He said, I'll give you 50. If you make the club, I'll give you 100. I made the club. He gave me 100. And he was the best. I like Paul Owens. I think he's one of the best GMs in baseball.
One last question. What players do you remember most fondly, in your managing careers? What guys do you, and we're not going to say one or two or whatever, but what guys do you remember very fondly from their playing careers?
I love Dwight Gooden. Because the first time I saw Dwight Gooden in Kingsport with Randy Myers and Floyd Yeomans, when they threw a bullpen, Dwight was on the plate every pitch, and Randy Myers and Floyd Yeomans were all over the place. And when I asked Dwight, I said, how do you grip your fastball? He said, I grip it cross seams on a giddy up, and I grip it with seams on a lateral movement. I said, that'll work. But my favorite player of all time was probably Barry Larkin for the Cincinnati Reds because he could hit 1, 2, or 3, and he was just a team leader. He was just a perfect human being. I loved him the most.
Thank you. Davey Johnson, Life in Baseball. Thank you for sharing your thoughts at Connor's Corner. Hope the book does well for your wife's charity.
Yeah, well, thank you, Mike. Thanks for having me.